Good morning, everybody. Got a fun project here. I picked up my Chevy van here a few months ago. My little Chevy van. I got 330,000 miles, original motor and transmission, just fuel pumps and wheel bearings. Really is the only thing that ever happened. It doesn't burn oil, leak oil. It's still running today. I gave it to a guy, and he's still driving it. Started to get a little rusty, but not too bad. But I needed a larger van, so I got this one from a Safelite fleet. Auto glass. It has like 200,000. There's no rust on it, and has a 4.3. They just put a new transmission in it. Probably the first one, maybe the second one. Who knows? But this thing gets 23 miles to the gallon on the highway. I went almost 500 miles on 23 gallons, and I had loaded. I got probably honestly 1,000 pounds of tools in this truck, in the van. And what's good about the van, you got the side door, of course, but the back loading height of the bed is so low. I always had pickup trucks, never again. I had so much stuff in this thing already, you won't believe it. Pickup trucks are, to me, unless you're carrying very large things, it's just a waste. So anyway, the water pump started dripping a little bit, so I figured, Murphy's Law, being half Irish, you got to be friends with Murphy. Otherwise he'll get you. Plus we just got back from Daytona with my daughter. I said, you know what, I'm going to change the water pump. Big deal. It's not a million of these, right? So like a banana, first I changed the thermostat because I had no heat all winter. It was freezing. I figured, let me throw the belt on, right? So I'm getting tired. It's getting late. The next day I find out I put the used belt back on by mistake in the dark. So anyway, I said, all right, let me take it all back apart, get new idlers, new tensioners. As you can see, just get the new pulleys. Don't skimp. They always go bad. I'll show you right now. Watch this. There's a quick story here. Where did it go? There's one. This is one. The little ball bearing in here is going 1,000,000 miles an hour. And that ball bearing gets dry and burns, and your belt pops off, and you're usually in the middle of nowhere, and that's usually what fails. The other one is this tensioner. The tensioner itself doesn't go bad, but again, it's a little tiny ball bearing. You can't really see it, but it gets dry. This one's wobbly and a little rough, so you got to be nuts not to change these. You will have a failure. And when you take your old belt off. Take the old belt and put it under your seat in the carton. Then if you have an emergency somewhere, you have a belt and you get back going again. I even carry an extra fuel pump and cut a hole in the floor so I could change my fuel pump in the notorious Chevy pumps, because it's like a 20-minute job versus getting towed and going to a shop and dropping a gas tank. It ends up being like close to $700-800 to fix the car, plus you're stuck for a day because of a fuel pump, and that's really the only things that go wrong with these. So if you have an old Chevy, cut the hole in the floor, or any GM product. So anyway, get to see that fan hub? It screws onto this water pump. Most mechanics know this, I forgot about this because I'm still a little old school. I forgot, because we used to unbolt them. This is normal, not reversed, they're normal. Gets a little corroded around here in New York. And it took 3 hours to get that to break free. Now most guys can use an air hammer, but I just didn't have the air hammer here on the tool. So what I did, I went and spent 90 bucks, which is worth it, on these tools. It's a special tool, a thin wrench, 36 millimeter, see? It gets behind that hub, and you put a breaker bar on the end, and you beat on it, but you can't really swing the hammer too good because of everything in the way. And then the other problem is you got to hold the pulley from turning. Like, you see the water pump pulley, the only thing holding it's the belt, so it slips. You can't get a good shot on it, no matter how hard you make the belt. So if you see the bolts that hold the pulley on, the fan hub, again, it's like 30 degrees in the unheated shop. So I apologize for the sniveling. Anyway, this tool here goes on the hub. And you got to have another guy, because one guy can't do it unless you're an octopus. You put the extension in here, and it kind of jams. The bolt goes through the center hole, and in this part goes against the hub, and you could whack on it and it holds the hub from spinning, but you need a second guy. I couldn't do it, so I ended up jamming a wrench in that bolt, going across to the frame, vice gripping it down, and I was ready to cut the whole thing off with a grinder. I was ready to cut the whole fan clutch off and everything off with this. I said, it's taking me 3 hours, I can't get it to break free. So just as I was ready to give up, never give up, and it must have heard me say grind to cut. The fan clutch heard me. It's possessed. Watch. There's the fan clutch. You'd have to cut this off. It all of a sudden came loose. No joke. You could have, if you were really desperate, because I did it years ago, you could unbolt the 4 bolts. It's tough to get in there, but you can get the 4 bolts and yank the whole water pump assembly with the fan on it off, and then, put it on the ground and work on it. Which, you could do that if you were, you couldn't get it off, let's say. But anyway, that's that. And as you can see, let me turn the light on down here. It might help everybody. You could see the way the belt routes to help anybody. I got a 4.3 Vortec. And these motors, my friend worked for UPS for 20 years. He's a mechanic in a shop. And he said when they had these motors in the UPS delivery trucks, they saved so much money and had no problems, and they could just throw a whole new engine in it if it blew up for nothing. It was the most reliable motors that UPS ever had, was this 4.3. And I believe it. I believe it. It's a simple, parts are almost free. Used parts are so cheap, or new parts. I would recommend when you get parts, try to get name brand. Don't get the cheapest parts from these big box auto parts stores. Like, try to get Delco or Delphi, or even Napa seems to be a little better sometimes, but even they're pulling the game with substituting parts. That water pump new was only $50, and it came from, they claim it's Bosch. Let me find it here. Let's see. Now this stuff's all made in Canada, which I find refreshing. Where is it? Made in Canada. Stuff from Mexico is very good. I've never had problems with parts from Mexico ever. It seems like their parts quality is good. This one says made. How does it? Oh, look. Okay, well, try to find a water pump. Try to find a water pump that's not made in where. Communist China. Or brake parts. Try to find them. The only thing left in America that's made here in the United States is Chinese takeout food. And my local one has Spanish guys working behind the counter now. So, I don't know what, it's funny, but it's not funny. It's like, how many factories and people lost jobs to that country that's spying on us and threatening us militarily? And both Republicans and Democrats passed NAFTA, so you can't blame either side. They both sold us out. Ross Perot, those of you that are old enough to remember, young kids should know, Ross Perot, 1994, I think. He is Texas Instruments guy, really nice guy. He warned us about this NAFTA and cursed at the government, the presidential nominees at that time not to do it, and everyone laughed at him, and everything he said came true. All the factories left, almost all. Some are starting to come back. Some are starting to come back because it's so expensive to ship, and some people are getting fed up with the bad quality metal and products. Like, I have some Harbor Freight stuff, like these floor jacks. They're all Chinese, and tell you, they're pretty good, man. But I'm not talking about the quality of the product so much. Even if they are good quality, this probably costs $20 in China to make it. They're selling it here for what, $150? And they got some, and I like the Chinese people. It's not the people, it's that the communist government, that America is using that as a slave state. I mean, you protest in China for a union or better wages or safety, you disappear into a labor camp and never see you again. All you guys, young people out there, look up Tiananmen Square in 1989. When I was in college, we saw that film when it came out. It was banned. and hundreds of students ran over by tanks, crushed into